Professional historians are famously bad prophets, to the point that most refuse to talk about the future at all. The more I have thought about why the West rules, though, the more I have realized that the part-time historian Winston Churchill understood things better than most professionals. "The farther backward you can look," Churchill insisted, "the farther forward you are likely to see." Following in this spirit, even if Churchill might not have liked my answers, I will suggest that knowing why the West rules gives us a pretty good sense of how things will turn out in the 21st century. I am not, of course, the first person to speculate on why the West rules. The question is a good 250 years old. Before the 18th century, the question rarely came up because it frankly did not then make much sense. When European intellectuals first started thinking seriously about China in the 17th century, most felt humbled by the East's antiquity and sophistication. And rightly so, said the few Easterners who paid the West any heed. Some Chinese officials admired Westerners' ingenious clocks, devilish cannons, and accurate calendars, but they saw little worth emulating in these otherwise unimpressive foreigners. If China's 18th century emperors had known that French philosophers such as Voltaire were writing poems praising them, they would probably have thought that that was exactly what French philosophers ought to be doing. Yet from almost the first moment factories filled England's skies with smoke, European intellectuals realized that they had a problem. As problems went, it was not a bad one. They appeared to be taking over the world, but did not know why. Europe's revolutionaries, reactionaries, romantics and realists went into a frenzy of speculation on why the West was taking over, producing a bewildering mass of hunches and theories. The best way to begin asking why the West rules may be by separating these into two broad schools of thought, which I will call the long-term lock-in and short-term accident theories. Needless to say, not every idea fits neatly into one camp or the other, but this division is still a useful way to focus things. The unifying idea behind long-term lock-in theories is that from time immemorial, some critical factor made East and West massively and unalterably different, and determined that the Industrial Revolution would happen in the West. Long-termers disagree fiercely on what that factor was and when it began to operate. Some emphasize material forces, such as climate, topography, or natural resources. Others point to less tangible matters, such as culture, politics, or religion. Those who favor material forces tend to see the long term as being very long indeed. Some look back 15,000 years to the end of the Ice Age. A few go back even further. Those who emphasize culture usually see the long term as being a bit shorter, stretching back just 1,000 years to the Middle Ages, or 2,500 to the age of the Greek thinker Socrates and China's great sage Confucius. But the one thing long-termers can agree on is that the Britons who shot their way into Shanghai in the 1840s and the Americans who forced Japan's harbors open a decade later were merely the unconscious agents of a chain of events that had been set in motion millennia earlier.